Welcome to the Careers by Jenn podcast, episode 276. On this episode of the podcast, Jenn reflects on finding positivity, perspective, and perseverance in challenging times. Challenging times? What's she talking about? Is something happening?
You're listening to the Careers by Jenn podcast. I'm your host, Jenn Swanson. This is the podcast that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. Careers by Jenn is a listener-sponsored podcast, and if you like the content, please consider supporting the show as a patron. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. Head over to CareersbyJenn.com and click on support to learn more. Hello and welcome to the podcast. It's been a busy time and my sabbatical from ministry is over like a few days after this episode comes out, and it's hard to believe how fast time has flown. But I am glad to be talking to you today. How are you doing? How are things for you? I know that life is challenging for lots and lots of people right now, and so that's what I wanted to talk to you about a little bit today. But just before I do, I want to acknowledge that this show is recorded on the unceded and traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, including the Matsqui, the Kwantlen, the Katzie, the Semiahmoo, and the Stolo First Nation peoples. I am grateful to those who have come over to the website and who have found my YouTube channel. I'm getting some amazing numbers on a couple of the quick career tip videos there, and it's been really fun to see how people are responding to the content that I've been putting out there on quick career tips on a number of topics. So I think I've got something like 13 or 14 videos up there, and so if you are interested in getting a little bit more and seeing little videos, hop over to the YouTube channel. Again, the easiest way to find it is through the website under support or under resources, or I believe right now, until I get 100 subscribers and can change the name of it, I think it's called The Jenn Swanson on YouTube. Anyhow, hopefully you find it. And you can also look up hashtag quick career tips on YouTube, and hopefully you'll find it. The other exciting thing is the Huddle Journeys that I told you about last week. That app is out now on iOS, and the Android version will be out in a couple of weeks. If you're listening to this well after the time that it's published, then that will be in December of 2020. And if you're interested in some 7-day transformational journey experiences via this app, then check it out in your app store. It's HUDDOL Journeys. And that's all very exciting as well. Okay, well, finding positivity, perspective, and perseverance in challenging times. I'm not sure why this title came to me, but it did. And we are currently in the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic right now here, at least in North America. I believe it's in second wave, third wave in some places. And I am on the west coast of Canada in British Columbia, and our health authorities are considering even more clamping down in the next while in order to once again bend the curve. Numbers of infections are going up and up and up every single day, and more people are dying from this, and so it's hard to listen. It's hard to listen to the news. Just about every one of us knows somebody who's got it or who has had it, and it's also hard to listen to the guidelines and the mandates about staying home and wearing masks and only traveling unless if necessary, and only doing minimal things out and about in the world. It's very difficult. I'm a people person, and I find this really hard. I'm doing it. No doubt about that. But it's not easy. It is my mother's birthday, and as I record this, I baked her a cake and I delivered gifts to her door this morning. And I know that she got flowers and gift baskets from other family members, and she felt really pampered and special and wonderful. It's not the same, though, as having a big festive dinner and singing and celebrating. And, I know that's a very small sacrifice to make if it saves lives and lets us get back to a place where we can all do those things, but it still is not easy, right? It is still not easy. These are challenging times. One could argue that as a human species, we go through challenging times all the time, often. So this is just one blip in a long line of challenging times. There is no, not for most people, there isn't a long stretch of nothing going on, right? There's always something that seems to arise, something that seems to come up. And sometimes it's small and sometimes it's catastrophic, and there's all sorts of things in between. It just seems that this pandemic, this one is especially hard because it doesn't have an end time to it that we know of for sure. If you're involved in a car crash or an earthquake or some other disaster, for example, the incident happens, then it's over. And then you're into recovery and rebuilding and rehabilitation and financial recovery and the need to recover from the trauma of the experience. But at least there's some kind of timeline that's visible in that. But this one seems to stretch on and on. And despite the most excellent recent news of at least 2 vaccines on the horizon that sound promising, it's still going to be months and months and months before that will be available to be distributed to everyone. So until everyone or most people have been vaccinated, the masks and the social distancing and all of that will have to continue. And I kind of wonder what will change permanently after we've been through this. Are we going to be as quick to hug each other again, to shake hands when we meet people, kiss each other on the cheek when we meet people? What is actually going to change culturally because of this? I'm just curious about that. I feel like every once in a while I have really down days when things seem hard and sad. And then other times I'm not thinking about it as much, despite feeling restricted in movement, etc. I suspect you're feeling that at times too. So how is it possible to find positivity in these challenging times? I wonder. And by positivity, I don't mean happy, happy sunshine and rainbows and pretending that everything is well. I don't mean just telling yourself over and over and over again that it's all good. I don't think that works. What I mean is real hope and noticing goodness and all the things that light you up and make you laugh, even if it's just for a moment. That kind of positivity. I don't think it's helpful to just pretend, to ignore reality when it's not good and the reality is evident. But perhaps what I'm wondering about is where in the middle of it all can you find even a few minutes, even just a moment where you can forget about the immediate circumstances and enjoy yourself and enjoy something. Whether it's a beautiful scene in nature or a fantastic show on TV or a delicious meal or a friend's voice on the phone. What can you pay attention to and appreciate today that is good, that is hopeful, that brings light and life into your day? That's the positivity I'm talking about. There is a quote by a person named Anais Nin, N-I-N, and I don't know if I'm saying either of those names correctly, that says we don't see things as they are, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. It's one of those quotes that makes you stop and say, I love that one. So instead of starting with things, my question is, how are you? How are you seeing things? Because how are you at the moment inside? What's going on for you? How are you feeling? How are you holding up, as one of my favorite radio show hosts says to the guests that he interviews? How are you holding up? I really like that question. I think it's better than saying, how are you? It's sort of a more specific question. How are you holding up? And it acknowledges and recognizes the difficulty of this time that we are in. And I mean, this can be, if you're listening to this years later, this can be any challenging times that you might be facing in your workplace, in your family life, in the world, in your community. These thoughts that I'm offering today and questions that I'm asking today can be relevant to any times of challenge. So I hope that if you're listening to this long after 2020 and maybe 2021, it will still be helpful to you. Perspective is helpful. There have been times lately when I find I'm listening to far too much news, and most of it is upsetting. Most of it is bad, or most of it is anger-provoking, or most of it is disheartening. And while I want to know what's going on in the world, I don't need to know every single hour. I really don't need to check social media, which can be frustrating. I really don't need to check the news outlets. I really don't need to know all the time what's happening. It feels good to turn it off sometimes and to focus on something else, even for a little while. Because you know what? It might seem like everything is in upheaval, is in flux, is confusing. And there's lots of that for sure. But you know what? There across the street, if you look out your window, is the woman raking leaves who stops to chat with a neighbor. And there at the park, there are two mums in their strollers sitting with coffees in their hand while their toddlers hang off the monkey bars and giggle in the sunshine. And in that hospital across town, there's a new baby being born, and people are just bursting with love because that new little being is in the world. And in dozens of living rooms across the city, individuals are recording themselves singing so that later they can be combined into a fantastic virtual choir recording. You know what? Life carries on, and people are doing their thing, albeit somewhat modified, perhaps, right now. But people are doing their thing all around us. The hummingbirds are still coming to my hummingbird feeder. The workers are blowing the leaves off the city sidewalks. People are laughing, and cooks are cooking, and students are studying. So despite the challenge of this time, life goes on. Life is carrying on. And so are you. And a year and a half, and then 2 years in, and then 5 years in, we'll still be talking about 2020, no doubt. But it will be a distant memory of that time when we kept on keeping on throughout it. That's my hope. That's the perspective. The perseverance part, that's the part that can be hard. If you've ever run a race, and I have not, but I did. I'm doing a workout program right now that is I'm learning how to run in the workout program, and today was 5K, so I was pretty excited about that. But if you've ever run a race or planned a wedding or moved house or gotten a degree or learned an instrument or a language or math. Well, wait a minute. If you've ever done anything for long enough to get good at it and master it, you've actually persevered, right? You learned how to walk at some point, possibly. You learned how to drive at some point, possibly. You learned how to speak at some point. And all of these things were really hard at the beginning and took lots and lots of effort and practice. But you've persevered, right? So you've actually persevered. There is something, and probably a number of somethings in your life that you kept on with despite challenges and struggle and failures that you finally succeeded at. And if that's true, then you know what perseverance is. You just have to remember it. You have to remember, as in put it back into you that, oh yeah, I've done that. I have persevered. I know how to do this, right? It's not easy, but when you get to the other side of it, when you get to the promotion or get the job or finish the project or launch the product or send that kid off to college, whatever it is, there is such satisfaction involved when you get through it, when you can breathe that sigh of relief. As the inimitable Glennon Doyle, if you don't know who Glennon Doyle is, she's on Instagram, she's on Facebook, she's written a number of books that will rock your world and change your life. If you don't know who she is, please go look her up. As Glennon Doyle says so often, you can do hard things. We can do hard things. Positivity, perspective, perseverance. I've got a few more ideas for you on how to keep these as we continue to face the challenge. One of them is to try to reframe the refrain. Reframe the refrain. If you find yourself saying, I have to be on another Zoom call today, how about trying to say, I get to be on another Zoom meeting today thanks to the wonders of the internet. Right? I can still do my work. I can still meet and be safe because there's a way for me to do that thanks to all the brilliant people that invented the technology that allows me to do that. Or maybe instead of saying I have to go to work today, how about I'm glad I can still work because so many people can't, have lost their jobs, are not able to go into work, etc. Try to reframe the refrain, that negative automatic complaint that comes up. Instead of the complaint, what's good and positive about your day, and what are you grateful to be able to do, and what are you fortunate in your day? Personally, I am really glad that I don't have to drive 45 minutes each way in the pouring rain across a bridge right now to get to work. I can commute to the kitchen in my fuzzy slippers and still put in a full productive day of work because we're doing everything remotely right now. And while I am really sad to not see people face to face and to not be in a church full of people who can sing and to shake hands and hug people and just be in communion with people, which I miss so much. I am very, very grateful to still be able to function and to do most of the things that I used to do, only now we have to get super creative about it and do it all virtually. It's been quite a journey learning how to do all of that and learning how to maintain community, which oddly enough is growing, because when you are not rooted to one location, when people can tune in from different cities, different towns, different provinces, and different countries for a church service, it kind of frees it up. You know, I went to church twice on Sunday because I took in one that was in North Vancouver, which is a fair distant drive from where I live, and one in Calgary. And it's like, wow, I could back to back because they're all on YouTube, right? So there are some freeing things about it. I get to hop around the countryside and see what other people are doing, which is rather cool, I think. One suggestion I heard about how to get yourself out of the negative and into feeling more positive while gaining some perspective is to do something for someone else, to give back. There is always going to be somebody who needs your help, who is worse off, who is struggling more than you are. And often to get out of our own situation, our own circumstances, our own loop of woe, the best way to do that is to help someone, do something for someone else. So what can you do to help someone? Can you do something helpful, something useful, something kind, something nice, something caring for someone else? If you're doing this in a workplace context, can you help a colleague out who may be swamped with doing something? Can you lend a hand? Can you offer to take on some tasks or proofread a paper or whatever it is that you need to do? Or even just, ask them how they're doing. And is there anything I can help you with? Maybe someone is just waiting for someone to take a load off, or even just to listen so they can vent for a little bit. How can you be a good friend and a good colleague if we're talking about the workplace? Maybe it's in your family that somebody is needing some help or somebody else is feeling the struggle. Is there something in the community that you can do? I know the holidays are coming. And the food banks need donations. There are lots and lots of organizations that are asking for help right now. There are lots of virtual markets for people who do handicrafts and who make things and who are struggling because they can't go to the live craft fairs and big events. So can you go online and support somebody local? There are tons of local businesses that are really struggling because they can't have as many people in. So can you order takeout from a restaurant that could really use the help, or go shop and buy things locally instead of ordering them from elsewhere? Are there things that you can do in your own community to support the people in your community, the small businesses? It's such a big help. So many of them are struggling right now. So if there are ways that you can use your time, your help, your listening skills, your money, are there your expertise? Are there things that you can do? Can you get groceries for somebody, or even just phone people up that you know are alone and have a lovely conversation for half an hour? Even that can be a help. There are things, and this is true for all of life, not for just what's happening right now. There are things that we can control, and there are things that we can't. So what do you have control over right now? Can you focus your energy and your time on doing what you need to do well, and can you let go of what you can't control even a little bit? There's the term radical acceptance comes to mind. If you accept that what is and stop arguing against it, you can then move on to what you can change. If you spend a bunch of time being mad that it's raining out when there's zero you can do about it because it's raining out, you're really not spending your time or your energy very wisely, and you're just you're putting that negative energy through your body, and the anger and the emotions and the adrenaline and the hormones, and you're doing a disservice to yourself if you're doing that. If you can accept that it's raining or whatever it is and move on, you might just find that you have a little more energy and more time to do the things you want to do than if you sit and stew and dwell on what if it wasn't and everything was different. And then there's gratitude. And I know I talk about gratitude a lot. There's always gratitude, but it is a state that has been studied scientifically. It has proven benefits to health and well-being. It is the number one prevention method of burnout, is to focus on gratitude and the things that you are thankful for. And it's not the default state for a lot of us. It takes practice to automatically go to gratitude. It takes work. For some of us, it takes a really long time because those neurological patterns are built in to go to the negative right? So can you take some time to practice gratitude? And you can journal it. You can just sit and think every day at the end of the day, what am I grateful for from today? Or if you catch yourself starting to think negatively, is there some way you can reframe that and be grateful for what it is that you need to do? What are you grateful for in your day, in your work, in your life, in your situation? Who are you grateful for? Well, that seems like a lot. It felt like a lot to me. I am grateful to you, my friend, for listening to me ramble on here. I hope my musings were of help, or at least of interest to you. Next week, I have another guest interview to bring you that I'm looking forward to. My guest is the founder of Hooray Health in the United States. His name is Shane Foss, and Shane is going to talk about why your career needs a passion for solving bigger problems. So that's actually the title of next week's episode, Why Your Career Needs a Passion for Solving Bigger Problems. So I look forward to bringing you my conversation with Shane Foss in the next episode. So until then, keep your chin up. You can do hard things, and we'll talk to you soon. You've been listening to Careers by Jenn with Jenn Swanson. If you like what you heard, please share this. You know, if every single person listening today shared this episode with just one friend, our audience would be twice as big just like that. And the more people we can help with our content, the better. So help out a friend and help grow our audience by sharing this show with someone you know who would benefit from the content. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, take good care.